Coloradans protesting the Trump administration took to Denver streets tonight, and that led to a couple of arrests by police after they told protesters to get off Broadway.
9 News reporter Colton Chavez joins us now. And Colton, you've been following this all night. Tell us what you've been seeing.
Well, right now, this is exactly where those protesters were met by that police line. This is Broadway. Right behind me is the intersection of Exposition. And while we were here, we saw police use a bunch of different tactics to try to get that protest group to disperse. And some of those are still even here on the ground as I talk to you now. I want you to pay attention to these things that we're going to show you on the ground. It looks like a paintball, and basically we saw police officers shooting these out into the crowd, and they would disperse some sort of a white smoke. You can actually see some of the remnants of that still covering the street. Those white little explosions that you see, those are what were being used along with different smoke canisters as well. Now what I want to do is I want to give you guys an idea of what we saw within the last hour. So I'm going to go ahead and turn your attention to some video about what we saw here within the last hour, and that's when we saw protesters meeting police at that police line. It was filled with the Colorado State Patrol and Denver police officers. Now again, we watched as officers used non-lethal tactics like those pepper balls I was just showing you, but they were also throwing smoke canisters into the crowd. People were using things like umbrellas and covering their mouths with their shirts. Others had actual masks on as well. And during that protest, when they were meeting with police, several arrests were made. We saw several people be brought down by police and placed in some sort of handcuffs. And then at one point, there was a drone that was flying over the crowd of protesters. We saw some sort of object fly from the group, hit that drone, and then it was taken down into the street where protesters began smashing and throwing it up against the street as well. Now this all started at a protest at the state capitol around 5 o'clock today, where we saw what was once a unified group split into two different groups. One headed down towards 19th, the other made their way up here down Broadway to Exposition. Now eventually several protesters used a microphone to encourage that group to leave, and that's when we started seeing this group turn around and start to walk away. Now if I can bring you back out here for another live look at Exposition right here off Broadway. Standing here now, if I could give you guys any indication of how much smoke was used, me, my photojournalist Mark, and Austin, we have a three-man crew here today, we're still sniffing and we're still coughing because there are remnants of this from here in Exposition for the next few blocks down as well. Now after this, we do plan to head back down Broadway towards the Capitol. We're not sure what activity is still there, but we're going to continue to follow this for the rest of the night.
Colton, does it look like there's still a critical mass of protesters out there? Is there still a large group, or have they dispersed?
Well, Kyle, at least for here off Broadway, we watched that group, everybody on foot, march back down towards the Capitol area. Unfortunately, that happened within the last half hour, so we decided to stay here. But all indications right now from what we're hearing is that there are people still making their way down towards the Capitol. For, a little bit of context, it would be a 55-minute walk for them to go from here back to the Capitol, over 2.5 miles. So I imagine there are still several protesters out on the streets tonight, Kyle.
And probably some that are going to drop off now that they have done this and it's getting dark. So thank you, Colton. We know you'll stay in touch with us, keep us abreast of everything that's happening here in Denver tonight.
Parts of downtown LA are under curfew right now as protests there over immigration raids enter their 5th night. Curfew in LA is in effect from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. LA Mayor Karen Bass announced a curfew in the last couple hours. She said she'd been considering it for several days and decided it was necessary after nearly 24 businesses were looted or vandalized last night. Tonight, LA's mayor also called the Trump administration's deployment of the military into the city unnecessary, said LA has the resources to address the situation. California's Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom is asking a federal court to limit what the military can do during these protests.
Donald Trump's government isn't protecting our communities. They're traumatizing our communities. And that seems to be the entire point.
I mean, President Trump's saving his city. President Trump's doing what he should have done. Gavin Newsom could have responded right away.
The LAPD says they arrested nearly 200 people today, including many who marched right on the 101 freeway.
Switching gears, it was a great day to get outside. Downtown Denver hit 90 degrees for the first time this year. We saw a lot of people out there taking advantage of the sunny weather, warm temperatures, beautiful sunset. We've seen some isolated storms tonight, kind of heard a rumble of thunder here and there. But we're expecting everything to kind of clear out. Kathy, this is stuff people love.
Yes, and hard to believe it's not even summer yet. This summer-like warmth will continue for the majority of the week, peaking over Father's Day weekend. 90 degrees in downtown Denver. Official observation site is out at DIA at 87. Average high for the date, 82. Records are typically this time of year in the mid-90s, so we weren't quite there. But look at this. We are sitting at 9:05 p.m. It's still in the 70s in downtown Denver, Greeley, and Fort Collins. We are tracking thunderstorms, as Kim mentioned, non-severe, but thunder, lightning, a brief shower. They're tracking toward the east off the foothills. The rain is beneficial across western and southwestern Colorado, where they could use every drop. Not seeing a lot of that rain making it to the ground here, but it's certainly possible over the next hour. And as we look at future casts, these little storms are going to roll out, and then we're going to do this all over again tomorrow. So coming up, we'll check the radar again, talk about the midweek storm outlook, and the potential record high temperature for Father's Day.
A man from Centennial drowned in southern Colorado over the weekend. The Pueblo County coroner says 44-year-old Daniel Strawn died at Lake Pueblo State Park on Saturday afternoon. CPW says he was with a group of people when he complained about being hot and jumped into the water without a life jacket. The group later found him unconscious. People at the lake and first responders performed CPR, but he was pronounced dead at the park.
An investor facing criminal charges for code violations at a troubled apartment complex in Aurora claims he's got nothing to do with the property. Public records contradict his claim. The Edge at Lowry, near 12th and Dallas and Aurora, was shut down in February. The complex made national headlines over inaccurate claims by President Trump and conservative media that a Venezuelan gang had taken over the city. Aurora cited the landlord, Zev Baumgarten, for a list of code violations. In court documents, his attorney now claims he had nothing to do with this place. But 9 News Investigates found he told police 2 years ago that he was a manager there. Baumgarten could spend up to a year in jail if convicted. He's due in court tomorrow.
Colorado's largest school district is dropping its lawsuit against the Trump administration, though Denver Public Schools is still celebrating it as a victory. The district filed the lawsuit in February, hoping to force the Department of Homeland Security to keep a policy that prevents federal agents from carrying out immigration raids at school. The suit was in response to ICE raids around the Denver metro area. That didn't happen on school property, but DPS argued it created fear among teachers and students. DPS announced today that both sides agreed to dismiss the lawsuit, saying the legal challenge forced new transparency from Homeland Security. They didn't provide specifics, but the district says they now believe schools are protected from immigration operations, but plan to file another suit if that changes.
The National Science Foundation is looking at drastic budget cuts as part of the Trump administration's efforts to slash the size of the federal government. Boulder's National Center for Atmospheric Research, NCAR, is part of that. National Science Foundation is submitting its budget request to Congress with a near 40% cut for NCAR, $50 million worth. NCAR works to provide understanding of weather and climate processes that affect everyone. Supporters of the budget cuts say this is needed to save money. Critics believe the Trump administration is trying to shut up scientists who talk about climate change.
It's just, we're going to cut it. I don't know how else to read that other than we don't feel like getting more information about climate change.
NCAR did not say if the possible cuts will bring mass layoffs or which of its specific projects could be affected.
Colorado now has more than a dozen measles cases so far this year. That has more people rolling up their sleeves and getting the shot.
9 News reporter Rachel Krause shows us Denver Health is seeing an increase in measles vaccinations.
As like a millennial 32, it's not really something that my friends and I discuss. We don't get together on Saturday and say, do you have your measles vaccine done?
Jake Yolise assumed he'd gotten his MMR vaccine for measles, along with all the other childhood shots. A blood panel showed he didn't have immunity, so with measles spreading through the state, Jake made the trip to Denver Health.
Just getting my MMR vaccine today.
It's not just Jake. Bob Belknap says Denver Health is seeing an increase in the number of people getting MMR shots.
Yes, the biggest increase we saw in younger kids, and primarily in that age group, that 0 to 4 age group.
Belknap chairs Denver Health's Public Health Institute. He says their ambulatory care service clinics began contacting families with kids who hadn't been vaccinated after the first measles case in Colorado back in March. They vaccinated more than 3,200 people this year, up 13% over last year. And measles vaccinations at public health immunization clinics, like where Jake got his shot, are up too.
We've also seen an increase in vaccinations, interestingly, among older adults, so 50 and older. And I think most of that is probably people who were uncertain and didn't have documentation of their immunity.
Colorado's MMR vaccination rates sit in the high 80s. Belknap says that's below the 95% needed for herd immunity. With 14 measles cases so far in the state, 8 of those in unvaccinated people, Belknap says they're hoping to bring immunization numbers back up to stop people from getting sick.
It really is the most contagious virus we know of. It's 9 out of 10 people who are not immune and get exposed will end up getting sick from measles.
Jake says this shot in the arm is something that helps him feel more comfortable.
There's absolutely no reason to not do that.
As Rachel Kraus reporting, Denver Health says if you think you've been exposed to measles, give your health provider their location a call before you show up so they can take steps to protect others just in case you do have measles.